Hi my friends, once again welcome to Master of Horror, the channel that will petrify you. Come with me into the depths of horror with these true scary stories with thunderstorm sounds. Thank you for listening. Now let's begin. Scary True Paranormal Story number 1. I once took a road trip from New Hampshire to Florida. I had to stop at a hotel to sleep overnight when I was about halfway there. It was an old vintage-looking hotel that rested off the highway on a quiet road. There were 2 cars in the parking lot, so there were definitely not a lot of guests. The lady at the front desk was very robotic with her words. The wallpapers were all outdated and very old-looking. It didn't matter because I wasn't staying there for the luxury, just for the night because I was extremely sleepy. It was really late when I checked in, around 2 in the morning or so. When I got in the room, all I did was take out my toothbrush and brush my teeth before jumping into the hotel bed. I turned off the lamp next to the bed, tried to go to sleep, not looking forward to the long day of driving I had ahead of me. Right when I was about to fall asleep, there was a knock at the door. I looked at the bedside clock to see what time it was. It was exactly 3 in the morning. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. Apparently, the peephole didn't work because I couldn't see out into the hallway. It was pitch black. I looked down at the crack under the door, but didn't see any outlines of feet blocking the light. So I opened the door just a little bit to peek into the hallway. I didn't see anyone standing in front of the door. I opened it fully and then peeked down both sides of the hallway. It was clear, so I shut the door and locked it with the bolt this time. I went to lay back down in the bed, but then it happened again, banging on the door. This time I jumped out of the bed, ran to the door, and checked the peephole again. Shockingly, all I saw was the empty hallway outside, but it hit me this time. I could actually see through the peephole. I unbolted the door and opened it. No one was there. I looked down both sides of the hallway again. There was no one. I could feel as if something was watching me. The hairs on my arms were standing straight up. This was where I drew the line. I grabbed the key to the room and went to the lady at the front desk. I told her someone kept knocking on my hotel door. I asked her to check the cameras to see who it could be. She replied they didn't have cameras in the hallways. The reaction also wasn't what I was hoping for. She seemed very unconcerned with what I told her. She said in a calm voice, there was only one other guest in the whole building. Then she just stared blankly at me. I could tell she wouldn't be of any help with this problem. So I left her and went back to my room. I locked the door with the bolt again. This time, I put on my headphones and put on one of those 5-hour sleep relaxation videos on YouTube. This would not only help me get to sleep, but block out any noise that I would hear coming from outside the room. It worked for a while. Eventually, I flipped from my side to my back and looked around the room. Then I froze with fear. I was staring at the corner and sat up. It looked like a giant humanoid figure, about 10 foot tall, standing right in the corner with its head to the ceiling. It was all pitch black. I crawled to the edge of the bed and looked closer, and I practically shit myself. I saw what I was sure was a long arm at the side moving. I dove to turn on the lamp and the corner was empty. I didn't stick around that time. I bagged up my few things in a matter of seconds and left the room. I gave the key to the woman and said I'm checking out early. She didn't even say a word as I stormed out the front door of the hotel. I then continued driving until I found another hotel where I fell fast asleep with no supernatural disturbances. Scary True Paranormal Story number 2. As a kid, I had a bedroom on the first floor. Money was a little tight, and my mom was taking care of 4 kids. I was the youngest, so I had the little room. My room was next to the living room, a small square room with wood flooring. There were two big vents in the floor in this room and two opposite corners. My bed took up half of the room. Like I said, it was very small. I was 13 years old doing my homework on my bed since I didn't have a desk in my room. When I heard a child's laughter, I freaked out. I went outside my room to look around the living room and kitchen for any of my siblings that must have been playing around. Everyone was upstairs asleep. I definitely heard that laughter. There's no way I could have imagined it. I continued my homework, but with one ear listening for any other suspicious sounds. Eventually, enough time passed that I was able to move past it. In fact, it seems it was just about when I was able to get over it, I heard it again. Kids giggling. It was louder, and this time it went on longer. It wasn't coming from outside my room. It was somewhere in the room. I figured one of my brothers was hiding from me. I followed the sound of laughter strangely to the corner of my room. I then looked down at the vent on the floor. That's when I figured out it was coming from inside the vent. I got down on my knees and pressed my ear up to the vent. There was no more giggling at this point. When there was a silence for a few seconds, I lifted my ear from the vent and then put my eyes up to the vent to get a peek inside it. It took me a second to realize I was staring at a pair of red glowing eyes looking back up at me. It opened its mouth and made a low growl. I jumped back to the wall and screamed for my mom in tears. She came storming into my room seconds later, but of course the noises were gone, as were the eyes. My mom thought I was going crazy due to a lack of sleep. I refused to sleep in that room that night, so she let me sleep in her room that night. This went on for a couple of weeks before she put her foot down and forced me to continue sleeping in my own room. We eventually moved a year later, and nothing paranormal ever happened since then. 8 or 9 years ago, me and some friends were on a camping trip. We encountered something weird in the woods that seemed to follow us home. This story is 100% true. At the time, me and my friends went camping in some private land in western Nebraska on some flat foothills around the Rockies. Late one night, when it was getting dark, we were playing airsoft on top of a plateau, a sort of zombie survival game mode that we made up. Survivors would hide. The zombies searched for people to shoot. Me and one friend were hiding in some tall grass near the edge of a roughly 60-foot dirt wall that was to our backs, so no one can sneak up on us. At one point, we spot a strange orb of light hovering around the area for a few seconds with fast speed. It zoomed through the sky and disappeared. Right after we heard movement in the grass behind us, we turned around and the grass was indented as if something was there. Like I said earlier, there's a wall behind us. It's impossible for someone to sneak up on us. And if it was an animal, we would have heard it. We kind of just blew it off. However, more strange things occurred a few days after getting home. Me and my friends had the same dreams and witnessed the same things when we woke up. In my dream, I was in the woods, scared and running from something that was chasing me. When I finally turned around to see what it was a humanoid creature with a deer head, with red glowing eyes. I woke up and it was freezing in my room. I could see my breath in the air. I got up and looked out my window, and standing right there in front of my window was a full-grown deer. It just stared at me and slowly walked away back into the woods behind my house. I've never had that happen to me before. I called my friend to ask him if anything paranormal was happening to him, and he said he just had a nightmare and he saw the same thing looking at him from his bedroom window. I know now that what happened out there was paranormal, and whatever it was did indeed follow us home. Scary True Paranormal Story number 2. The house on Magnolia Road. My family and I moved into a 2-story house in Oklahoma back in 1978. When some friends of the family found out we were going to buy the house on Magnolia Street, they begged my parents not to do it, warning them that it was haunted. But my father didn't believe them, so we moved in anyway. When my father was working in the yard one day, he came stomping inside angry, demanding to know why none of us were picking up my crying nephew, who was a newborn at the time. Well, we all looked at him like he was crazy, and we showed him that the baby was fast asleep. Dumbfounded, he returned to the yard, but he told us later that day that he continued to hear the baby crying in the house. As soon as he got outside, even my nephew was asleep or not home at all, my dad would always hear the baby crying. On another occasion, my dad was in the kitchen drinking coffee at the table. He looked up and saw a woman with long black hair watching him from the stairway. He knew something wasn't right. He called my mom over and she saw it too, right before the woman vanished into thin air. The kitchen was the most haunted room in the house. Another time, my mom and sister were eating at the table, and the dish rack full of dishes lifted itself up off the counter, hung in midair, and crashed to the floor, breaking everything in it. Mom said maybe the ghost didn't like dishes cluttering up the counter space. Once my mom got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. To get there from her bedroom, you had to walk through the kitchen. When she did, she saw a woman standing at the kitchen sink. My mom just ignored it, hoping the entity would leave her alone. So my mom kept her head down and continued walking to the bathroom. When she made it to the bathroom door and put her hand on the knob, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked at it, and it was a black hand with long nails. She then heard a woman's voice say,
"Hello there."
When Mom turned around, the woman disappeared right before her eyes. Only a couple of days later, my sister said she felt someone sleeping in her bed next to her. At first she thought it was one of our younger siblings crawling into bed with her, but one night something pulled the blankets off of her, and when she reached down to pull them back, she realized she was alone in the room, but she could still see an imprint in the mattress as if someone were sitting on the bed next to her. She was petrified. She closed her eyes and prayed. When she opened her eyes, the imprint was gone. Almost every night around 3 in the morning, my mom would hear a toddler falling down the stairs, hitting the kitchen floor, and crying. She would go see what happened, and nothing was there. One time, my mom was watching TV, and she saw a cowboy standing at the back door staring at her. When she got up to see who it was, it disappeared. My parents called in a priest who blessed the house, and the paranormal occurrences would temporarily stop, but soon after would pick up all over again. The hauntings proved too much for my family, and we had to move. The house was demolished in 1988. Inside the walls, they found an 8-inch thick binder full of documents and deeds about the house and the land dating back to the 1700s. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you've heard, please like and subscribe for more scary, true paranormal stories with Thunderstorm sounds. Okay, my friends, till next time, and don't forget to leave the nightlight on.